My name is John Arnold. I'm the Bishop of Salford. I'm also the spokesman for the environment for the Bishops' Conference of England and Wales. I was given that responsibility about 4 years ago, shortly after the publication of Laudato Si, Care for Our Common Home by Pope Francis. And I didn't realize it then, but it has certainly made a very big impact on my life personally, because I've come to realize that we're all responsible. I'm responsible for many of the things that I can change in my life as a practical response to climate change and the damage it's doing. I think Pope Francis has given a challenge to the world. And when he published Laudato Si, it was the most eagerly anticipated document, and it's become the most published papal document ever. Pope Francis actually tells us we have a beautiful world. Creation is a wonder in itself. God's created something which is quite perfect in so many ways, and He's entrusted it to us. And we are able to make it into the beautiful garden that it should be. We're able to care for it, make sure everything that is in our world can thrive in the conditions that we have. But because of our selfishness, we've actually forgotten about the diversity of creation. And we're just looking to find the profit for ourselves. We've polluted the seas. We've ravaged our resources, burning all these fossil fuels. We've caused the forests to be plundered again for our profit without thinking of the longer-term consequences. What keeps me awake at night are some of the statistics that I'm now hearing coming from scientists of great repute who are telling us that Greenland, for example, has lost 4 trillion tons of ice. That is an immense amount of ice. That causes sea levels to rise. We read about the state of Louisiana in the United States of America. They lose the size of an American football pitch every 45 minutes because of the rise of sea levels. And we know that 40% of the world's population live close to the sea, dangerously close to those rising sea levels. And if those sea levels rise as predicted, then we are going to see our cities become uninhabitable. And there are all sorts of very disturbing statistics about the warming of the planet causing less food production. 10% less food for every degree that the Earth warms. And yet we're going to have more people looking for less food. And if they can't grow food, they have to move. They have to go somewhere where they can have a sustainable livelihood. Possibly 500 million people by 2050 and 1 billion people by the end of this century, moving because they can't live where they now live because they can't grow the food that they need. What we do here in our own country, in our own towns and cities, actually affects some of the poorest people in the world who have done least to do any damage to the climate where they are. There is a danger that we may turn a blind eye to everything that's there as evidence of climate change, that we might feel it's just something we leave to somebody else, to governments to sort out. The consequences of our turning away from this emergency will be terrible for future generations. Pope Francis is very clear in Laudato Si. He actually says that the damage we've done to our environment, our planet, our common home, is a sin. But if we're responding to the requirements and the crisis that we face with climate change, the Holy Spirit will guide us, will reassure us, and will achieve far more than we could imagine through our actions if we will rely on the Spirit at work in our lives. And the Eucharist, above all, gives us that strength that we need to repair the damage, to see creation as something very beautiful, which we must honour and serve and enhance, to make it that beautiful garden that God has given to us. For the Eucharist will give us strength. It is our food for our journey. Laudato Si has taught me to think very carefully about my place in having done damage to the world in which we live. I, with everybody else, have a responsibility to help in the repair. I can't leave it to governments to change policies and to industry to sort out the burning of fossil fuels. I've got my role to play too. And I've made quite a lot of changes to my life, without a great deal of inconvenience, I must say. I rarely eat meat now. I'm not a vegetarian, but I just don't choose meat very often. I'm trying to be sure never to throw food away, that I buy what I'm going to eat and no more. I recycle much more carefully. I try to share journeys so as to avoid always taking my own car. I'm trying to fly less, though I have to fly for certain aspects of my work, but I don't need to do it recreationally. I'm more careful about the use of water. I've turned down the heating where I live, and I'm much more comfortable wearing a pullover around the house without really feeling any the worse for doing so. And I'm also careful about turning off those machines that are on standby, computers and televisions, when I'm not using them, because that can be quite a considerable drain on electricity. All these things may seem very trivial, and we might feel as individuals we're not really contributing anything. When everything is added together, all those small things are going to make a significant difference in repairing damage, in reducing the damage that we're doing now, and looking after our planet in a much better way. What I'm particularly encouraged by is the response of the young people who are really getting to grips with learning about climate change, but actually responding to it in practical ways. They're really understanding the consequences of climate change, and they appreciate that in their lifetime, if we don't do something, they will see the effects of climate change in some fairly dramatic ways. But they're challenging us, and they're understanding a problem, and we need to respond. They are the church, as Pope Francis says, of today, not of tomorrow. They're showing us the way, and we need to listen to the wisdom that they have about caring for creation.